This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
A fantastic slate of games across men's college basketball conference tournaments for today. We've got the semifinals in the ACC and the Big 12, quarterfinals in the Big 10 and the SEC as well. And we're going to break it all down today with Riley Thomas of FanDuel Research getting his read on today's key games, letting you know where he sees value at FanDuel Sportsbook. Then we'll talk some APL with Austan Kas later on as well. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research. Joined here to kick things off by Riley Thomas. You can find Riley on Twitter at _Riley8. He is a writer for us at FanDuel Research. Riley, welcome on into the show. How you doing today?
I am doing great, Jim. How about yourself? It's a pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.
I am doing delightful. And we were talking about this before about how nice it is to have stuff that we can have on during the day. Yeah. Now, when we had Aiden Cotter on Wednesday, I asked him, what's the setup? So for you, is there a monitor in front of you? You can have games on. Is there a TV within eyesight? What's your go-to setup when there are 16 games going on at once?
I'm a bit overboard. I have every device imaginable. I got 2 monitors. I got a
tablet. We got a tablet left. Cooking here.
I got a tablet with a little stand. I got everything. If there's 5 games on, I'm having 5 games on. So whatever I can do, always got the games going.
How long did it take you to refine this? It sounds like a next tier level process for game consumption.
Yeah, in the past it was just one TV next to me, and then I was like, you know what? I need more devices. I need more than one game, especially this time of year. March Madness, I have to have every single game on. I can't miss anything. So I'd say in the last year or so, I've gotten it down for sure.
I love it. Now you're wearing a Kentucky shirt for today. They got Texas A&M later on. Kentucky favored by 4.5. So I got to ask, how you feeling about that? I'm
feeling great. I'm cautiously optimistic right now about this team, but it seems like the talent's lining up. We've been rolling recently. I like Kentucky's chances of winning the SEC without going too in depth with it. But
that's a tough conference, man. There's a lot of good teams there.
Yeah. But they look good right now, so I'm pretty optimistic for tonight for sure.
And we'll get to discuss Kentucky next week, too, because Riley will be with us next week talking about some of the round of 64 games. So next week, jam-packed week, talking brackets, talking individual days. We'll talk the women's bracket as well, all right here on Covering the Spread. So search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or over on Spotify as well. Of course, you can find this show, as always, on the FanDuel YouTube page and FanDuel TV Plus. Now, Riley, we're going to dig into games here in a bit, but I do want to talk to you about your overall betting process first, because obviously you're watching a lot of games, and that's a key part of betting as well, kind of having that eye test factor. But what steps do you go through before you want to place a bet on a college basketball game?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a great question, because I think college basketball is pretty unique in terms of when you compare it to other sports. Because, what other sport are you looking at that has, 360 teams, So there is a lot that goes into it. And I think it's even more difficult now with the roster turnover you see every year. The transfer portal, NIL, it's just making it more and more. I need 2 months to start really learning these teams because, I'll be watching a game in January and I'm like, when did this guy transfer here? I had no idea. So I think the biggest thing is trying to look for consistency. That's the biggest thing I look for first, is just how has this team been playing the last 2 weeks? Because these teams change so much over just say 3 weeks to 4 weeks. So I think it's important to keep in mind. I do obviously want to lean on the metrics and look at metrics and try to make sure that you're getting consistent data from, say, Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, everything's lining up. But at the same time, I think it's important to keep in mind that, this doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, because that team from, say in January,
sure,
they were a lot different than what they are now. So I kind of try to look at what they've been playing recently. And then from there, I'll kind of dig into metrics more. And I try to not make it too complicated, just a typical try to compare, how's this team defend the three, how this team shoot the three, et cetera. And just try to find the matchups to exploit, really.
So it sounds like the starting process for you is, getting a feel for what a team has done recently. And then you go to the data after that. It's kind of like a check. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, for sure. Because I think something else that's interesting with college basketball as well is you'll see a team randomly just start shooting the three at 40% a clip for 5 games. but they're only shooting 27% on the year. So
Right.
it's like, you want to have those things
Correct.
somewhat match up as well. So
Right.
yeah, it can be difficult, but that's typically what I do. Yeah.
Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk here about some games. As mentioned, it's a really fun slate for today. Let's start things off in the ACC semifinals for tonight in the ACC. Looking at those two games, any bets you like at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight, Riley?
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning into North Carolina tonight. I have loved what I've seen from them. Pittsburgh comes off a win against Wake Forest. Pittsburgh has a lot to play for. I know they're pretty squarely on the bubble there. So a win for them would be huge tonight, but I've just liked too much what I see out of North Carolina. I'm leaning, especially with what the odds are at right now. I like them covering 7.5. I would even take them to cover 8, honestly. They played each other in January. North Carolina won by 13. They won the rebounding battle by 12. I think that's the biggest thing for North Carolina, especially going into the NCAA tournament next week, is they're such an elite rebounding team. I mean, you have Armando Bacot and Harrison Ingram. They're both in the top 11 in defensive rebounding percentage in the ACC. I mean, this team can rebound, and then you got guys that can take over a game and score, like RJ Davis. Pittsburgh's defensive backcourt isn't the best, so I think he could be a potential prop to target tonight as well. His points. So I'm loving North Carolina tonight for sure because they've been rolling.
That number for the UNC Pitt game is a 7.5, as Riley mentioned, -108 on the UNC side of things. Now, obviously, motivation is going to be pretty disparate between these two teams because Pitt trying to make the tournament, like you said. UNC has higher aspirations based on the way they've played so far this year. Does that worry you at all, given that the motivation may be a bit different between these two?
I see the thing for me, I debated that, and I think the thing for me where I'm staying North Carolina is they have a real shot at a 1 seed here. I
Yeah.
think if
Okay.
they win this tournament, and then I think there's a real chance that Tennessee does not win the SEC tournament just because it's a tough conference.
Right.
If Tennessee was to lose, North Carolina wins this tournament, I think they get the 1 seed. So
And
I
that's
think for
big
them, there's
motivation.
still plenty to play for. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm not too worried about it because I think, they see that 1 seed. They know it's there, and they can get it for sure.
Okay, so plenty on the line, despite the fact they are not playing for their tournament lives here. So Riley on UNC -7.5. In the Big 12, a couple semifinals, Texas Tech, tough task for them taking on Houston. Baylor facing Iowa State. Anything stand out to you in the two Big 12 games for today, Riley?
Yeah, I'm really looking at that Iowa State Baylor game. I think that has a chance to be the best game of the night. I mean, you see the 1.5. I mean, it's going to be a close one. So the two played in February. Iowa State fell short by 2 on the road. But I'm really high on the Cyclones for the tournament. I really am. I mean, they can defend. They have guards. You got Taman. I think it's Taman. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But Taman Lipsey, Keyshawn Gilbert. I mean, these are two guys that are double-digit scoring guards. So I mean, they have that. They can play defense. And I think the thing with Baylor that could be trouble for this game is typically, they can really shoot the 3, and they have been this year, but they've been under 30% in the last 2 games. And for Iowa State, they love to pack the paint. They're going to defend the rim. They barely give up 2-point shots. So if you can't make threes against this team, I mean, good luck scoring. So I think I'm kind of concerned about that for Baylor tonight. If you're not making the 3, it's going to be tough. So I'm definitely on Iowa State with a -1.5 for tonight because if Baylor can't make the threes, I think it's wraps.
Now, from a film perspective, when you watch Baylor, do you think they have the personnel to be better shooting outside, or do you think that what they've been doing recently is more indicative of what you would expect going forward?
I think that's the tricky part is you don't know how long this cold streak's going to go, and I absolutely think they're better than that. I mean, if you look at their percentage for the year, they can shoot better than that. I mean, who knows? It could flip tonight, but I just have a hard time just guessing they're going to start making them. But I mean, they definitely have it. I mean, they have several guys, especially in that backcourt, that can really shoot the ball. So who knows? I mean, they could get hot and they could turn for March Madness. I mean, hey, that's what happened a couple years ago when they won it all. So, but we'll see.
All right. So Riley is on Iowa State -1.5 for tonight, taking on Baylor. That is -110 for Iowa State in that one. No semifinals in the Big Ten, but we get to see the top seeds in action. Purdue is playing, Illinois, obviously the best team in the tournament, Northwestern, playing tonight. When you look at the Big Ten, Riley, anything stand out to you there?
Yeah, I think another game that I'm really looking forward to is Ohio State and Illinois. I think it's been pretty clear that Illinois has been the second best team in that conference all year. But Ohio State's become really interesting. They decided to move on from Chris Holtmann on Valentine's Day, actually. Some gift there, right? But yeah,
It was a gift to Ohio State the way they
that's
played
for
after
sure.
that.
That's ever since. I mean, they first game without him, they win against Purdue, and I mean they're on the bubble now. They have a ton to play for Ohio State, and I am very hesitant on it. I won't go this risky, but I think there's some good value to be had with the money line on Ohio State there. Because if they win this game, I think you could argue they could get in. I mean, they need this game, and the bubble is getting more and more tricky because the A10 has turned into a mess. They're suddenly stealing a bid because everybody, like Dayton, lost yesterday, so the A10 suddenly getting a bid, and the bubbles are getting even harder for Ohio State. So they really need this game. It'll be interesting because the Illini really like to push the pace and score a lot, and Ohio State's probably going to look to slow it down. But I think I'm on the Buckeyes to cover here at the 4.5 because they've been shooting about 45% from three over the last 4 games. Illinois, they're in the bottom third of opponent 3-point percentage, I believe. So I think Ohio State has the offense to hang in this, even though Illinois is obviously a hard offense to stop. So I like Ohio State to cover tonight.
Now, you alluded to the money line as well. Ohio State's money line right now is plus 160. The implied odds there are at 38.5%. How much interest do you have in that as opposed to the spread? Or in a situation where you want to put a bid on the spread and a bid on the money line, how are you handling that dynamic with Ohio State here?
For the most part, I think I'm gonna stay away from the money line, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely interested in it. I think the problem for me is Ohio State's defense still is not great. You still can't ignore Illinois can really score the ball. It's going to be hard to keep Terrence Shannon and Marcus Domask under wraps. So I'm staying away from it, but I am so close to taking that money line because I mean they need this game. It's tough, but I don't think they have the defense to win it.
Okay, so keeping it close, maybe pushing to get the win, but Illinois potentially still getting there. But Riley does like Ohio State plus 4.5, which is minus 110 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. I mentioned the SEC, some fun games there. We got other games we didn't talk about in the Big Ten, ACC, etc. So when you look at the rest of the board for tonight, Riley, where else is seeing value at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Yeah, there's a lot of good games tonight. I think the biggest one for me that I am definitely on is Florida money line against Alabama. It's at plus 146, I believe, last I checked. Oh, it's up to plus 152, even
There
better.
You go.
But yeah, I really like Florida. I know they're kind of showing some signs for concern recently. They've been inconsistent, but they played Alabama on first week of March and beat them by almost 20. And Alabama they can't really defend. I mean, they're giving up almost 96 points over the last 5 games. I think Florida has a slightly better defense in this, and they have the guards that can run with Alabama. I mean, you have Walter Clayton and Zion Pullen both averaging over 15 a game. I think just considering the way that Florida was able to really trounce them in the last game, I think they can get this game because I don't think Alabama has the defense really to slow them down. So I'm definitely on Florida tonight to win that outright.
So that money line, as you mentioned, now plus 152. The implied odds there, 39.7%. Is this a spot where you're going to put a bit on the spread as well, just to give yourself some cushion, or just full in on the money line for Florida here?
I'm full in. I'm going all the way in on it. I'm really, really nervous about Alabama being able to stop them. I mean, they're bottom 15 in the nation and giving up fouls, and Florida got 45 free throws in the last game. So Alabama just fouls nonstop. Florida could live at the free throw line. I mean, I like them to win this outright.
All righty. Well, that is the Florida money line in that game, taking on Alabama. And that is Riley Thomas. Make sure you find him on Twitter at _Riley8 and find his work at FanDuel Research. A lot of college basketball stuff going up over there, both today and the rest of the NCAA tournament season. So Riley, appreciate the time. Enjoy. Hopefully all your devices stay fully charged for today. We'll talk to you again next week.
It's a pleasure being on. Thank you.
Alrighty. Again, find Riley on Twitter at _Riley8 and check out his work over at FanDuel Research as well. We're going to talk some EPL with Austan Kas here in just a bit. But first, FanDuel's putting the ball in your court for the rest of the NBA season because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Bet on the NBA with a wide range of bet types, including quick bets, live same-game parlays, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and Vermont. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org/Chad, Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700. Visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-70 Hope and Y or text Hope and Y in New York. Now, a limited slate this weekend in the EPL because they got some other stuff going on in the soccer world for this week. But I did still want to get Austan Kas on the show here, talk EPL Matchweek 29. Check out Austan on Twitter at Austan Kas. He is a senior editor for us at FanDuel Research. Austan, a delight to get you on the show for today. How you doing?
Doing really well. How are you, Jim?
I am doing great. Now, I asked Riley how he's feeling with Kentucky playing tonight, but you've got Indiana taking on Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament too. So I got to ask you about that. How are you feeling about Indiana in this one on the men's side of things?
Not very good. I thought IU played pretty terrible last night. It was tough to watch them. They're missing Trey Galloway, one of their normal starting guards, and they've basically been without him for 2 games in a row, and the offense hasn't looked good. But I don't know. They've won a few in a row and seem to be playing a little better, but I think Nebraska is going to take care of business tonight.
Nebraska is a 4.5-point favorite. That sounds like FanDuel Sportsbook feels the same as you do for that one there. So hopefully they could pull things out for you. But we'll see how that one goes for tonight. Okay, let's talk some EPL. As mentioned, Austan, limited slate for this weekend. Only 4 games across 4 matches across Matchweek 29. Let's start things off with the traditional markets. What are you seeing there as far as value at FanDuel?
So in Saturday's Brentford and Burnley match, I really like Brentford to go over 1.5 goals, which is -102. You can find that in the goals tab. For much of the season, Brentford has been a team that's looked pretty solid through the lens of expected goals, but they haven't been getting results in the field. The market's been accounting for that for most of the year, but as of late, the poor results keep piling up, and the market's really cooled on Brentford to the point where I think it's a pretty good time to pounce for the Bees matchup against the Burnley side that's likely going to be relegated. Still think there's a good bit to like about Brentford, even though they're 15th in the table by expected goal differential. According to FBref's XG model, Brentford is 10th. The results haven't been good lately, as I mentioned. They've lost 4 of 5 with 1 draw in that span, but they've played Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool in 4 of those 5 matches. So it's been a pretty brutal stretch schedule-wise. And even with the bad results, they scored 2 goals in 2 of their last 3 games. Burnley have given up or at least 2 goals in 7 straight matches and have the 4th worst defense by expected goals allowed. So I really like Brentford's chances to score multiple goals. In this one, I also don't mind Brentford's moneyline price at +115, but I prefer to take them at over 1.5 goals at -102.
Okay, so as mentioned, that's in the goals tab of FanDuel Sportsbook. Brentford over 1.5 goals, -102. The money line that Austan had discussed was where the draw is in play as well, +115 for Brentford there. The tie no bet money line for Brentford is -166. So a couple different options as far as ways to potentially bet Brentford here in a match against a Burnley side that is not exactly in the best form right now. Okay, so we're on that one. Brentford over 1.5 goals, -102. Any player props stand out to you across these games, Austan?
Well, yeah. So I've got a player prop I like. I actually have another bet that I like, just like a standard market bet, if you're cool with that.
Let's do it. I'm fully in.
It's a Tottenham-Fulham matchup. I like Fulham and draw in the double chance market at -135. Last weekend, Tottenham got a massive 4-0 victory at Aston Villa, a result that gives them a big leg up in the top 4 race, and their 4 goals helped us cash over 3.5
I was going to say, they did all the work by themselves. I feel like we should be grateful to Tottenham for at least a week, but no, you decided to stab them in the heart immediately. Rude.
I know, we got really lucky. Tottenham scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of that game.
Wow.
And Aston Villa had a guy sent off when it was 2-0, and that kind of killed the game. And usually the team ahead, Tottenham, would have just passed it around and been cool with going, but that's not how Tottenham plays. So yeah, we got lucky there.
Because I didn't actually get to watch the match. I woke up and I forgot about it, and I checked my tracking app and I saw that it won, and I was like, okay, cool. So I went on with my day. I had no idea any of that happened. There was no stress on my part for that one.
I honestly had given up on it, and I saw later that it had won and was like, holy cow, what happened? So I had to look up the highlights. But yeah, we got that, and then the Sheffield United one was really crazy too. And so that was really fun weekend for us. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, the Sheffield one was plus 230, and that was in this market. So even though we are reversing course on Tottenham, at least we're going back to a market that was very kind to us last week.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason I like Fulham here is Tottenham, pretty much that game last week was kind of a microcosm of their season. They massively overperformed XG. They scored 4 goals from 1.5 expected goals. They've been doing that all year. They have 59 goals this season from 47.0 expected goals. Their XG differential is barely positive, yet they're 4th in the table and a really great chance to be in the Champions League. Fulham haven't really been playing great. They're 5th worst by expected goal differential this season, but they've been a little better lately. They've won or drawn in 5 of their past 7 matches, with the 2 wins coming against Brighton and Manchester United. The win against United was actually on the road too. So Fulham's definitely been playing better, and it's really been their attack that stepped up. They've amassed at least 1.2 expected goals in 7 straight games. Well, I'm wary of putting a little too much stock into a small sample. I think there may be some validity here, and my faith comes from the play of their striker, Rodrigo Muniz. He started in each of their last 6 matches after starting just 3 times all season prior, and he's really been a revelation. He scored 5 times over the past 6 matches and also dished out 1 assist, so I really think they found something with him. Tottenham have not been great defensively. Prior to the clean sheet at Aston Villa, they'd conceded 8 goals across their past 3 away matches. And as I've talked about several times on this show, their style is just really friendly for both themselves and the other team. There's just a lot of chances in their matches. So I think Fulham are going to make it tough on Tottenham, and I like Fulham's chances of getting at least a draw.
Okay, so that is the Fulham and draw minus 135 in the double chance market for their match against Tottenham. You mentioned that Tottenham has outperformed XG by a pretty wide margin. And I'm curious what you think is the explanation for that, because the explanation could just be variance and luck. That could very well be the explanation. Is there something else that could explain why they've overperformed, or does it simply come down to we should expect them to regress going forward?
I think it's probably mostly variance. Yeah. I would say defensively, the way they play and the high press they deploy, when they give up a chance, it's typically a really big chance for the other team, something that's going to count for maybe half a goal XG wise.
Right.
And sometimes those chances look easier on a computer screen for XG than they would be in real life. Sometimes it's a break where the attacking team's they have an advantage, but the goalie's rushing out, and just Tottenham kind of make it chaotic. In the first half, they basically got dominated. They didn't even attempt a shot against Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And Villa had some chances, but all of those chances were really rushed and chaotic things. I think they were down 0.66 to 0 in XG at halftime. Tottenham didn't create anything, but it never really felt like Villa had a really good chance to score, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're kind of gaming the system a little bit.
Right.
But I do think overall, attacking wise, they are going to regress over time. That time may not happen this season. So I don't know. They just keep doing it.
They keep getting away with it, but hopefully that does not continue in their match against Fulham. That is this weekend again. Fulham and draw minus 135 in the double chance market. Okay, I jumped the gun. Now I'll ask you, player props. Anything stand out to you there, Austin?
Yeah. So thanks for coming back to this. So this is actually my favorite bet of the weekend. It's in the Aston Villa at West Ham match, and it's Ollie Watkins to score or assist. So anyone who's been watching me come on here at all is not going to be surprised that I'm going for the goal or assist market. We got burnt with Pedro Neto last week. He started and then he got hurt. So that was a tough break there. But I'm going back to the well with Ollie Watkins here. In a lot of ways, this number feels like too good to be true. He's been one of the best players in the Prem this season. He has 16 goals, 10 assists through 28 starts. This is a great matchup for him. West Ham have conceded the third most XG. When they played at Villa earlier this season, Villa won 4-0, and Watkins had a goal and an assist. So really the only box that isn't checked for me is that Watkins is on the road and it's on short rest. They just played last night in a European game, but they were at home, so the travel shouldn't be too bad here. But it's one of the league's best attackers going against one of the league's worst defenses. So I'm pretty excited about this plus 105 line, to be honest.
That's Ollie Watkins plus 105 in the West Ham versus Aston Villa matchup. Do you think that the rest angle is the reason why this number appears so advantageous, and the fact that he's on the road? Are those the only two explanations you can get as far as why this number is where it is?
Yeah, so I think the rest thing probably has a lot to do with it. West Ham actually played last night as well in European competition, but I think Villa playing in Europe, they're not quite ready for that yet. Their squad isn't ready for it, and I thought against Tottenham, they really got tired in the second half of the game, and Tottenham doesn't have a European commitment this year. So the Villa was in the same situation last week. They had played a game midweek previously. So I think that's probably it. And maybe the market is slightly overreacting to how bad Villa got beat last week. But in general, it's probably the rest thing. I think you're right.
With Watkins, do you want to wait to see the lineup before you bet this one, or are we pretty okay with that despite the fact they played last night?
I'm pretty okay with it, and I'd actually take it now.
Perfect.
It was plus 110 when I was doing research yesterday, and I think it's probably going to end up moving the other way.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I would take it. And with Villa losing last week, they really have their backs against the wall to make the top four, so they're probably going to roll out their best lineup.
Okay, so be okay with taking that one right now, the Ollie Watkins to score or assist at plus 105 on top of Brentford over 1.5 goals minus 102 and Fulham and draw minus 135 against Tottenham. Hopefully we can have a successful week once again this week as Austin had last week. That is all that we have here for today. Austin, appreciate the time from you once again, as always. Find Austin on Twitter at Austan Kas. Enjoy not just the soccer, but also the college basketball. I know you love that as well. So thanks for coming on. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Good luck to your cast tonight.
All right. We'll see how that goes. My brother-in-law went to Wisconsin, so it's a family victory either way. I'm going to use that as my go-to line to cope for when they inevitably lose. But
I think it'll be a fun game. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they should be safe regardless. But with the injuries they've got, I've given up hope. So I think I'm back to my baseline state of no hope. So it feels comfortable and good, like a nice fuzzy sweater. I'm back to no hope. It's great.
If I would have told you before the year you're in a no sweat situation in the Big Ten tournament and you're in the dance, you probably would have taken that. So. I
can't say no sweat because I am paranoid about them getting Florida stated because of their injuries. I am so worried about that. It might be okay, but I'm worried. So I can't say no sweat. Dumb stuff happens with Northwestern all the time. So I appreciate it. Thank you. I will take my cope elsewhere, but thank you very much. Again, find us on Twitter at Austan Kas. I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can find me you can also find FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Jam-packed week next week. So we've got 5 shows coming early on in the week to get you ready for both the men's and women's college basketball tournaments. Make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread to get those shows as they go live. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Good luck to you with your bets. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.